Hey there, this is Perch, and today we're going to do Savage Dragon 243, brand new issue of Savage Dragon by Eric Larsen. And you may be asking yourself, why? Why? Um, I'm going to talk a bit about Savage Dragon the series and kind of where it's gone and some other things. In addition to this review, so it's kind of a cheat review. It is a review of the comic, but it's going to be a little bit more than that. So Savage Dragon. So and like always, I'm asking the question: is this comic for you? Is this something you would enjoy? And I'll try and kind of lay out some scenarios that will help you pick a little bit what's going on. So, um, first off, Savage Dragon's gone on for a long time. This is one of the comics that launched during the Image Revolution in the early '90s, and it's a comic that has evolved quite a bit from the initial launch. The art style has remained the same. I mean, one of the nice parts about Savage Dragon is that Eric Larson has stayed at the helm of this book, and I think the run will be remembered as one guy, one vision, one art style. Long comic, has done a lot of different things. But you think about it, it's been 20 going on 30 years. That's impressive for one run, and there's not been a reboot. There's not been any of that nonsense. So, um, other than the initial miniseries, and then we got the title proper. But it's been a good run, and so you have to hand that to Larson. Um, getting into the comic, and again, I'll kind of go back and forth between the run and in general. So, again, just showing some panels. Don't want to get any kind of copyright nonsense going on. And also with my reviews, if you haven't noticed already, I don't spoil them. So I'll talk with some elements of the comic, but we're not going to spoil it. The point of the review is to kind of review, not reveal. There are other channels that will do that for you. Savage Dragon right now, it's technically the son of the Savage Dragon who is in this comic, and there's been some other dimensional back and forth and alternate worlds that have gone on. But it's not the same Savage Dragon as the one that started the series. It's the son, Malcolm, and he's living up in Canada because why not? In the time of Trump, you live in Canada, and right off the bat, this title has recently, in the last few years, taken a shift to a more adult tone, and you don't necessarily get that from this is not for kids. But if you're a retailer, this is not for kids. Fool me once, you don't get fooled twice. One thing about Savage Dragons, it was not subtle. There's this shift to more adult content. I mean, there's always people getting punched through, the body and explosions and, very kind of 90s, just giant boob characters and so on. But, it took a turn to like, female nudity and giant penises and other things. And so, it was not a subtle turn. So we're going to have to use some little black boxes here. But basically, show kicks off. Things are always getting destroyed in the Savage Dragon, all throughout almost every issue, like the apartment or the house or buildings. I mean, just stiff stuff's getting screwed up all the time. The real hero of the story is the insurance company that's underwriting all this stuff, because just the constant destruction. So anyway, the Savage Dragon's girlfriend here and kids are under attack by a giant monster penis. But fortunately, they get away, and it the giant monster penis ate one of the kids, but the kid shocked it to death. So all's well. And that's kind of the setup for the story. You typically, the thing about Savage Dragon for a while now, you have kind of one and done stories. Generally, you have a self-contained story, and then you have a few elements that are carrying over from issue to issue. Like somebody's going to the hospital and is all messed up, or somebody's trying to get back from another dimension, or some evil, Mr. Glum is plotting some horrible shenanigans. So, um, we get a little bit. The Savage Dragon title is kind of about taking kind of home situations and putting kind of the absurd on them. So, we get the Savage Dragon's house is all messed up and there's blood everywhere and just problems. And so Savage Dragon's buddy here shows up with a sex bot that he's reprogrammed to clean the house, and so that's cool. She's cleaning things up, and we get some. She should get some longer skirt because it's weird. Um, and then it's off to a party, and so kind of very much typical party. The mom is taking the kid to a birthday party, and she's got her party dress, and don't wreck the party dress, and they're having fun and shenanigans, and let's go play, and it's all very fun. Meanwhile, the mom is getting super drunk because everybody's talking about the this kind of leaked video where she was getting gang raped. Well, rape maybe is wrong. She's in a huge orgy, being kind of overwhelmed by lust and just it's a whole thing in a previous issue. So she's getting drunk because she really doesn't remember all this stuff, and the kids walk in and there's some burglary going on in the house, and then a big fight, and this time though it's the little girl, and so it's kind of funny. The little girl is, of course, got these powers and is super strong and just blowing everything up, beats the bad guy, destroys the house, cars, everything, destruction, no death apparently, but big fight, and that's a wrap. That's the issue, and then we get some sex, and it's over. So, and then there's usually a backup story. So one of the things that Larsen's done for a long time in his run is he's got a backup story that goes on with some other characters in the universe, and then some kind of one page comic strips and some funnies, and um, it's Larsen is try. I mean, he's putting out a book, and he has for a long time now, that is meant to kind of appeal to maybe a long-term comic fan, somebody who kind of remembers some of the comics of the different eras. I mean, it's an interesting mix because when people come in and say, well, how would you describe Savage Dragon? It's like, well, it's a throwback to a bunch of different eras, kind of all at once. There's definitely some '90s stuff at play. There's some modern sensibility here in terms of kind of social issues and things going on. They are one and done issues, so it reminds you a little bit of some of the old kind of '60s Superman stories and other things from that regard, where generally everything's tied up. Then we got some backup stories, and those often are, a mix of genres, just a very big, mix of different kind of thing. This one's a little bit more emotional horror kind of bent, um, and at times they're very nostalgic, or they add to the old universe. But that's more or less what's been done. And so that's kind of book he's curating, is one that maybe a comic fan who's been a comic fan for many decades and many eras can kind of sit back and take it all in, um, and kind of be reminded of a bunch of different points in time. So that's, I think, kind of what how I try and describe it to people, of like, if you're looking for something a little bit unique, but also can remind you of some different eras, that's kind of the package he's put together. And do you have kids? Do obviously, you're not going to be buying this for your kids. So I think, is this for you? Well, that's tough. I think the Savage Dragon book definitely has an audience it appeals to. The fans that have been reading it are and buying it are very loyal. They come in and keep coming in. But it's not. It's definitely not going to appeal to a huge audience. It's not going to. You're kind of in for the storytelling ride with this book. The art and the I'm combining the art and the story together. It's a You're in for the experience of Savage Dragon. The one thing I will say is that month after month, there's not another book out on the stands that's quite like Savage Dragon. It's different in how it's presented and how it comes out. So if you are a fan who's looking for something new, like you've tried all the other comics, and you want something that feels different, tastes different, you're kind of sick of the event cycle and kind of the at times by the book way that some comics feel these days, then I find that a lot of those people find something new and kind of fresh with this title. Um, there's a lot of humor, and it's designed to be a funnier book, but it's not a comedy book per se. It's got a lot of backstory. It definitely rewards readers, I think, who've stuck around for a long time, because you get to know these characters and what's going on. I've recommended this in the past for, you can just jump in to this book, and then I've heard more recently that's not really true. You can't really just jump in to this book. It's very, you're like, what, other dimension, child, son from another time, what's going on? That tends to frustrate new readers. So it takes a little bit of, you got to kind of go back and research a little bit. Not always the easiest comic to get old issues of. So there's that. But it's something to, I think, I people have very polarized opinions, and when the comic took a turn to feature more adult material, that definitely got some people really ticked off, and rightly so. If they, if they threw that on the shelf and didn't realize, bad on them. But um, it's it's a very unique book, and I think as time goes by, I think the best thing I could say is um, we all are looking for some new storytelling, new ways to consume comics, and kind of new stories to tell. And Savage Dragon is telling a new type of story, in a both a new way and a very kind of classic way in a lot of cases. So it sounds like I'm saying just a bunch of things at once, and maybe I am. But here's a comic. It's if you are fed up with the big two and very predictable storytelling, this comic just might nail it for you. If you like kind of 90s storytelling, then this won't give you 90s storytelling. I hate Larsen's gotten tagged by that primarily because people remember him leaving for Image or founding Image during that time. So a lot of people have that kind of stuck in their heads. But this isn't a 90s book like a bunch of guys with knives on their arms being all extreme and cool. It's definitely a more kind of lifestyle fun book. And the one thing about it, actually, I will say, if you pick one issue up and you like it, then you're going to like most of the issues. You're going to be able to go back and keep reading, and you're going to like what you see. If you pick it up and there's a what, no, I really dislike this, then you're not, it's not going to improve the next issue. It is a comic I think you can kind of get a gut feel for one way or another. It is a comic that if you kind of liked and then you kind of go back and you can read through all the issues, it does improve with reading a bunch of issues because you get a better kind of sense of the whole story. And so that's a plus. But it's also, if you pick it up and you're like, I don't really like this, it's not going to get better after 80 issues. You're not going to change your mind. So, is it worth buying? Sure. I think, if what I've said kind of appeals to you, go check it out. It's an interesting book. Otherwise, there you go. If you like this very middle of the road kind of stammering review, hey, go ahead and subscribe, share with your friends. Tell me what other comics you want me to review. I'll get right on that. And have a great day.